Conclusion: the mechanism revealed. Civilizations do not fall because of mystery, misfortune, or a single catastrophic moment. They fall because the capability required to operate their systems exceeds the capability available within their population. Everything else, politics, ideology, economic turbulence, cultural change, is surface expression. The true driver is structural. I hope this book has helped reveal the capability, complexity gap as the structural pattern underlying civilizational rise, stagnation, decline, collapse, and reset. Across history, empires follow the same arc. They rise when capability is abundant. They flourish when capability outpaces complexity. They stagnate when complexity begins compounding faster than capability. They decline when the balance reverses. They collapse when feedback loops finally fail. The early stages are silent. The late stages are unmistakable. Decline begins invisibly. Maintenance slips. Standards soften. Small errors multiply. Institutions grow heavier. Workarounds become normal. Bureaucracy thickens to compensate for lost competence. Only later do the political and economic symptoms emerge. By the time a civilization recognizes the scale of its deficit, the deficit is already embedded across generations. It is no longer political. It is mathematical. Modern societies follow the same pattern under unprecedented load. No civilization in history has operated systems as complex as those of the 21st century. Global logistics, digital networks, high-density energy grids, automated finance, continental bureaucracies, and labor-intensive service economies. These systems require sustained concentrations of high capability. When capability decays, through demographic collapse, educational erosion, incentive failure, or misaligned immigration, the systems begin to misfire. People feel this long before they can explain it. Support lines that never solve problems. Bureaucracies that cannot answer simple questions. Inconsistent standards across medicine, construction, and trades. Infrastructure that fails under ordinary stress. Organizations drifting into confusion. Rising frustration and falling trust. These are not isolated irritations. They are the lived experience of a civilization whose complexity load has silently exceeded its capability base. This is what decline feels like from the inside. Understanding the mechanism delivers clarity at every level. At the personal level, it reframes blame. Individuals are routinely placed into systems too complex for them to operate. The failure is often structural, not moral. This does not excuse incompetence, but it explains why substitution effects, shortcuts, and breakdowns persist across sectors despite endless reforms. The system no longer matches the capability distribution of its population. At the organizational level, the pattern becomes obvious. Institutions that ignore capability erosion become ungovernable. They compensate with rules, audits, oversight layers, and procedural scaffolding. Each addition increases complexity, widens the gap, and accelerates decline. Reforms fail because they target symptoms instead of structure. Recovery begins only when capability is rebuilt, slowly, deliberately, with incentives aligned toward competence rather than compliance. There is no shortcut. At the civilizational level, the logic becomes unavoidable. Nations with collapsing birth rates cannot sustain the competence density required for modern complexity. Without selective, high-skill immigration, they drift toward bulk labor models that dilute capability further. Standards fall. Maintenance erodes. Bureaucracy hypertrophies. The state recalibrates downward toward a simpler equilibrium. Some descend gradually, as in Japan. Some fracture abruptly, as in the Soviet Union. All follow the same structural path. At the predictive level, the model becomes powerful. It does not forecast elections or market cycles. It forecasts trajectories. When capability declines and complexity rises, the endpoint is fixed, contraction. Collapse, in this framework, is not annihilation. It is recalibration. Societies shed complexity they can no longer operate. They become smaller, slower, more local, less coordinated. They abandon global ambitions. They stop maintaining infrastructure. They lower standards. They simplify institutions. They retreat to the level of capability they can still sustain. The timing varies. The mechanism does not. This book does not offer easy solutions because none exist. Structural decline cannot be reversed by slogans, budgets, or leadership changes. It requires a generational project of capability restoration, rebuilding educational rigor, realigning incentives toward competence, reviving trades and craftsmanship, resisting bureaucratic hypertrophy, restoring institutional coherence, prioritizing selective, high-skill immigration, reducing system complexity where necessary, designing institutions that match demographic reality. These are difficult tasks, but clarity gives direction. The purpose of this book is not to lament decline or romanticize the past. It is to give you a model that cuts through noise and reveals the structural logic beneath modern dysfunction. Once you understand the capability, complexity cycle, the world becomes legible. Institutional decay, demographic inversion, bureaucratic chaos, political incoherence, and social frustration resolve into the same mechanism. You begin to see where systems will fail next. You understand why reforms stall. You recognize real leverage points. You stop mistaking standard erosion for anomaly. You think structurally instead of emotionally. And that changes everything. The final truth is simple. Civilizations rise when capability exceeds complexity. They stagnate when capability plateaus. They decline when complexity outruns capability. They collapse when feedback loops fail. They renew only when complexity contracts to match remaining capability. This cycle shaped every empire in history. It shapes every advanced society today. It will shape the century ahead. If this book has succeeded, it has given you clarity, the ability to see the pattern, the discipline to interpret the world without illusion, and the tools to respond with intention rather than resignation. Once you see the mechanism, you cannot unsee it. And once you understand it, you are no longer blind to the forces shaping your world.